Ready? Yeah. Yeah, 49. We're back on track. We are on day 17. Before I begin, I must acknowledge and congratulate over 350 of our members have taken the test that has been produced by Beki'im Bahalacha. And I'm proud to say that the average mark was between 85 and 100. So Baruch Hashem, our members are not only learning, but they're retaining. And it is remarkable. And I think all the members should take the test. I mean, what's the difference? If you fail, it's not going to really make such a difference. You can take it again. But it's a good way to cement the knowledge into your brains. So therefore, again, I want to congratulate those that took it. And I advise everybody should take the test. It doesn't really cost anything. And it's another way to ensure that you remember the material. So today we're continuing the Me'ah Berachot. So we learned yesterday that there's an obligation to make 100 Berachot. And in yesterday's learning, we actually said that you have a big mahloket what the obligation is. Is it from the Torah, like we saw from the rabbi called Bahalacha Gedolot, or is it midrabanan, like we saw from Harambam, or is it maybe like a halacha Moshe Sinai, which we saw from some of the rabbis as well, Shabbat Haleket and the Sefer HaManhig. So that's debatable, but everybody agrees you have to do it. The question is on what level are you obligated to do it? I'll remind you that Rabbi Shalom ibn Gabirul is the rabbi that wrote for us the Azharot that we sing on Shavuot, and I just went back to it to see, to make sure his opinion. I said yesterday he follows the opinion of the Bahag, that it's the Oraita, and actually I found the line where he writes Umiberachot tatzmid me'at hanigmarim. So Umiberachot tatzmid, you should connect yourself to the berachot me'at hanigmarim. 100 you must conclude on a daily basis. Now, although really doesn't say anywhere daily basis, but I'm assuming, because the pasuk just says, what does God want from you? Ki'im liyir'ah. And the Gemara says, or like we learned from the text that we saw in Rashi yesterday, ma me'ah, or the 100 letters in the pasuk, however you want to learn, but it really doesn't say every day. So I think we need to add the fact that David HaMelech, when he saw 100 people dying every single day in the time of the pandemic of his generation, so he established the Me'ah Berachot. And since they were dying every day, it seems that the takana was then to be done every single day. And I also want to clarify, we did this early on, that according to the opinions that it's from the Torah, so what does it mean David HaMelech established it? So it means David HaMelech re-established it. He saw that in his time that may have been lackadaisical and they were getting, lenient with it, so he had to reinforce it. Okay, that's just a review. But for our point, everybody agrees that the Me'ah Berachot is an obligation. If you look at Shulchan Aruch in Siman Memvav, there is no doubt to that fact. The reason why I'm making such a big deal out of this is because if you look at a rabbi called Rav Hida in his book called Mahazik Beracha in Teshuvah 290, so he quotes the Gemara in Menachot, Mem Gima, which is the source of this halakha of Me'ah Berachot. And he quotes a rabbi called Rav Hiya. And what happened with Rav Hiya? It says on Shabbat, where it's hard to do 100 berachot, because as we're going to do the count soon, you'll see that on Shabbat you're going to be short. The Amidot are not as long as they are during the week, so you're in a pinch on Shabbat. So it says this rabbi Rav Hiya was careful to get special fruits and different sorts of delicacies and treats in order to get to the 100 berachot. So Rav Hida learns from this. It sounds like it was a stringency. The rabbi went out of his way to get fruits and treats. It sounds like he went out of his way. It sounds like from the law, you really don't have to. So he's making an observation from that Gemara the other way, that it's a nice thing to make 100 berachot, but you see from the fact that the rabbi went out of his way to get fruits, what do you have to go out of your way? It should say he was demanded to eat the fruits on Shabbat to get the extra berachot. From the way the Gemara's language is, it sounds like it's a nicety. It's something that's extra. However, the rabbi called Petah HaDevir, we learned about him, Rabbi Pontromoli, he disagreed and insisted that it's an absolute obligation. What the Gemara is saying over there is that this Rabbi Chiyah went out of his way to get rare delicacies, and he spent money in order to do the mitzvah in a better way. He didn't have to do that. He could have just eaten regular stuff. It's just saying that since the mitzvah is so precious to him, he went out of his way to get special food. But not to say that it's a stringency at all. So he holds Petah HaDevir that it's an obligation, and there's a rabbi called Steh Chemed agreed with him. Chamo V'Adya alav Shalom also says that don't think for a minute that this concept of saying the 100 berachot is voluntary. It's not. That rabbi went out of his way to get fruit. We're going to learn later on that there's other ways to get the 100 berachot when you're short, and that's by listening to somebody else make a beracha and answering amen. So all the Gemara was saying over there was this rabbi didn't want to rely on that. So he went out of his way in order to buy extra fruit and get extra delicacies and treats. But not that he was saying that was a stringency. It was just that he wanted to do the mitzvah by him making the berachot himself as opposed to listening to somebody else. So again, the jury is out on this one over here. You have the Petah HaDevir, you have the Steh Chemed, you have Hakam Ovadia, you have Shulchan Aruch. They're all going to say the obligation to make the Me'ah Berachot is non-negotiable. Now the question becomes, when they said 100 Berachot, is it 100? Or let's say a person wants to make 110. My point is, should he stop at 100? Is there something magical about the 100, the number 100? Well, it seems from the large majority of the poskim that the minimum threshold is 100. But of course, and that's the way Shalom says as well, means from the Ramban as well. But he does bring from a rabbi lived in the 1700s, a rabbi called Aharon Amirillo, alav Shalom. He was the chief rabbi in Saloniki. He was a great, great Talmid Hacham, and he was also a Mikubal. And he wrote a sefer called Penei Aharon. Again, if our members have time to look at it, in the 7th Teshuvah, he has a thesis on Me'ah Berachot, this rabbi. And he really goes through the history of it, and he has a lot of Hiddushim in there. I'd like to tell you one of the Hiddushim that Rabbi Amarillo said in his Teshuvah. Again, chief rabbi in Saloniki in the 1700s. Go on. So he writes that actually the 100 berachot were established by Moshe Rabbeinu at the time that they were erecting the Mishkan. Listen to this. At the time they were erecting the Mishkan, if you remember, there was the base of the Mishkan. See, the Mishkan was made up of poles. The poles were called Kedashim. But the Kedashim were like forks at the bottom. They had prongs coming out of them. So obviously it cannot stand flush on the ground. So they needed to put at the base of the Kedashim what they called Adanim. Adanim were sockets. And they stuck them in the bottom of the Kedashim, and they served as the base of the Mishkan. And how many Adanim were there? 100. So Rabbi Amirillo says that at the time that Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to place the Adanim on the Mishkan, Me'at Adanim, Me'at Adnei Mishkan, that's when he established Me'ah Berachot. And he gives an image. He says, if you take the word Me'ah, which is 100, Me'ah is Rashi Tevot, Me'at Adnei HaMishkan. But he doesn't explain to us what's the connection. He goes on to say that if you remember, we learned the pasuk yesterday about David HaMelech, Ashrei HaGever Hukam Al, right? Hukam, he established Al. He established the Al, Ayin Lamed, which is 100. Hukam Al. But he learns hukam, that it was established at the time of Hakamat HaMishkan, hukam al, at the time that he established 100 adanim. But my question was, what's the connection between the me'at adanim and the me'at berachot? So I once saw by a great rabbi called the Be'er Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Salant. He explains that the foundation of Judaism, if you wanted to take a pillar and place your Judaism on one pillar, like the Gemara says in Makot, the main pillar that Judaism stands on is emunah. V'sadik be'emunato yahyeh. And that's a key pillar. It's a key principle. It all starts with emunah and it ends with emunah. And he has a long piece in the Perashut that talk about the Mishkan, that the adanim, that those sockets that were on the bottom of the Mishkan represent the basis of Judaism, because the Mishkan rests on it, and therefore he refers to them as adnei emunah, the adanim of emunah, because each part of the Mishkan would represent a different mitzvah. Because there's, let's say, 613 components in the Mishkan. So the Mishkan is resting on the adanim. So the adanim would be the mitzvah of emunah. So once I saw that, I understand what Rabbi Amarillo is saying. Because he says that when Moshe Rabbeinu put the Mishkan together and he established the adanim, the 100, at that time he established the 100 berachot. Because basically, what did we learn yesterday that the berachot do for a person? They keep us connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you say Hashem's name 100 times a day, and you have kavanah, Elokeinu melech haolam, that God is supervising, God is almighty, so that's clearly going to bring you to emunah. Do something 100 times a day with kavanah, it's going to condition you. Mm-hmm. I don't care. We say ashrei 3 times a day, and everybody knows it by heart. And you don't have to do something that many times to get conditioned. So imagine if you did it 100 times with kavanah, what type of emunah that would bring you to. So therefore, the Rav comes along and says that the tikkun of the me'at berachot was by Moshe. So Chamovadia, when he reads this teshuvah, he sees that Rabbi Amarillo gives a Kabbalistic reason why it's 100. And if he understood from Rabbi Amarillo, it's got to be 100 and not 101. But if you take a closer reading to the teshuvah, which I did last night, you'll see that the Rab wasn't saying that you can't do more than 100. He's just explaining that why initially the takana was 100, because there was reasons for the Kabbalah. Why did 99 people die a day in the times of David, or 101? It was 100 because they wanted to make a tikkun of 100 berachot. But he wasn't going out of his way to say that if you want to make more than 100 berachot, that you're not allowed. And therefore the halacha, all the poskim, it's unanimous. You got to get to 100. But once you get to 100, you want to go more. That is a meshubah. Now, there was an old tradition that Harambam brings down. He brings it down in Melchot Tefillah, and he says that you should actually count the berachot. So remember yesterday I was joking when I said you got to get a counter, and every time you make a beracha, you got to click and to see where you're up to. Harambam actually says you should count them. And it's brought down that Hacham Ovadia alav Shalom, especially on Shabbat, but that's when you're pressed for extra berachot, would count. So you can imagine that you could ask Hacham Ovadia at any time of the day, what are you up to? 73. And he knew exactly where he was holding because he used to count them. Listen, anything that's important, you count. If I told you should count your money, nobody would be shocked on that. Of course, we count the money all day long. People count money twice. They say, kesef rashet tevot, kesef sofrim pa'amayim. You count money twice. So if it's important, you count it. But berachot, if it's not important to you, so therefore, who cares? You wing it. So I heard also that the Brisker Rav, Soloveitchik, alav Hashem, also used to be meticulous in counting actually berachot, found the opinion of Harambam. Now, what I'm going to tell you now is a little on the Kabbalistic side of things. It's brought down from the Arizal. It would probably need more, more development. There's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Okay? Aleph to Taf. Somehow, not for this class, but somehow the 100 berachot are related to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, when you hear letters of the alphabet, for example, ABC, alpha, beta, gamma, you just hear letters, and that's all it is. Other letters of other alphabets are nothing more than communicative. They're just letters that were created in order to allow us to communicate. So if I want an apple and I want to communicate that, So I take an A and a P and a few of those and an L and an E, and there you have an apple. It's solely communicative. There's no power in the letter A. There's no power in the letter P or L, and that's it. However, the Hebrew letters of the Hebrew alphabet are laden with energies. God used the 22 letters of the alphabet to create the world. So that means there's a lot of spirituality and kohot in the letters themselves. They're nuclear. The Hebrew alphabet is nuclear. So if I say in Hebrew the word tapuah, wow, that's already the essence of an apple. It's not just giving you a communication of how to say it. The taf and the peh. If you do a study and put those letters under a microscope, you'll see the DNA of an apple in the letters themselves, and you'll see the kohot. It's an amazing kohot that when you go into the Jewish laboratory, the way we create things is with Hebrew letters. Hebrew letters are constructive. Lashon HaKodesh is a different language. It's different than the other languages of the world. That being said, somehow Arizal writes that if a person wants to connect himself to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, he should make the 100 berachot meticulously, and by doing that, it energizes the 22 letters. And once they become energized, then already you receive the hashpa'ah from the 22 letters. Okay, again, not for today to explain how 100 energize 22, but he says it's only going to work if you say the berachot correctly and properly. You can see this in Halacha 61. I'll just read it to you because it's a little esoteric. The Arizal taught that the 22 letters of the Aleph Bet correspond to the 100 blessings that each person recite every day. Somebody fails the daily quota of blessings on a particular day, he becomes disconnected from the corresponding letter or letters. And if he recites the blessings with errors, corresponding letters will be deformed. If he recites it correctly, but fails to concentrate, the corresponding letter will be devoid of spiritual energy. Therefore, it's crucial to make these berachot properly if you want to connect to the 22 letters. Now we get to the count. Okay, now bottom line. Now we're talking to the men. We'll get to the ladies in a minute. I know ladies first, but we'll talk to the men over here first. So now we have the issue like this. Let's start the count from the Amidah. That's the lion's share of where we're going to get our berachot. Men pray 3 Amidot a day. Well, they should pray. Arbit, Shacharit, and Mincha. The day starts from Arbit. So you have 19 berachot, 19 times 3. So you're at 57 without even doing anything. Just by being a basic, simple Amidah Jew, you got 57. I mean, that's incredible. You're more than halfway there. I want to point out that there's a pasuk in Tehillim. It says, Erev, Vaboker, Vasahorayim, Asiha, Ve'ehemeh, Vayishma Kolim. Erev, Vaboker, Vasahorayim is the 3 tefillot. Erev is Arbit, Boker is Shacharit, Sahorayim is Mincha. Asiha, I will converse with God. Ve'ehemeh. Ve'ehemeh is I will call out to him. If you take the numerical value of the word ve'ehemeh, it's exactly 57, which comes and teaches us the 57 berachot that one makes every day. Add to that, we're going to have Birchot HaShachar. Now remember we learned Birchot HaShachar 18 plus the 3 Birchot HaTorah. So now you have 57 plus 21. Again, you didn't do anything yet. Your basic stuff that everybody does. So what do you got? 67, 77, 78. Just with Amidah and Birchot HaShachar. And then you put on your taler and tefillin. So you got another 2. Taler is l'ta'atef v'sisit, l'ani'at tefillin. If you're Ashkenaz, you make 2 berachot, but leave the Ashkenazim for a second. So that's 2 berachot. Now you're up to 80. You're up to 80. You did nothing yet. You didn't even eat yet. You didn't break your fast, and you're at 80. Then you have Baruch She'amar as a beracha, and Yishtamach as a beracha. So that's another 2. So that you're at 82. And then you have the 7 berachot of Shema. You have 4 berachot in Arbit, 2 before the Amidah, 2 before Shema, and 2 after Shema. In Shacharit you have 2 before Shema and 1 after. So that's 7 berachot. So 82, what do we have? 82 plus 7. So you're at 89. Okay, beautiful. Now, some have the custom to make a beracha before they go to sleep. Baruch HaMapil. Some say the beracha of HaMapil with a beracha. If you do that, you got 90. Our custom, as we're going to learn, is not to make Baruch HaMapil with a beracha, so you're still at 89. So we're short, basically, 11. So now what are we going to do? Well, before you got to go to the bed, you got to eat to go to the bed. So therefore, you got to eat. So let's assume a person eats, like the Gemara says, supposed to have bread in the morning. Pat shacharit. Even though today gluten became the enemy of mankind, my grandmother lived to 103. She ate bread every single day, so I don't know what they're talking about. But they came along and said, now you look at the ingredients, no gluten. When did gluten become amalek? Gluten is bread. People eat bread for 100 years. The Gemara says pat shacharit. Now people are making mezonot and hamotzi to find out that no, there's no wheat in here. It's all potato. In any event, or soy. For those that still are friendly to gluten, and you eat bread every day, pesharit, the Gemara says pat shacharit. I trust the Gemara. The Gemara says to eat pat shacharit, ne'emanim alay divrei Gemara. You have nothing to worry about. So therefore, nitilat yadayim, hamotzi, and then the 4 berachot, the berachot. So you got 6 right there. So that'll break you to 95 berachot. And then, if you're really a man and you have 2 meals a day of bread, so then already, not that you have to, but if you're a man, you have to. It's nice to have bread. So therefore, you'll have another 6, so that you're over the top. If you're not a bread eater, so like we said, you have Asher Yatzar, goes to the bathroom, you have a cup of coffee in the middle of the day. Listen, 4 or 5 away from 100 is easy to fix. And the way, especially we live between the snacks and all the different, intermediate eating between meals, you'll be okay. So that justifies when your wife tells you, hey, what are you doing in the refrigerator? Hey, ma'aberachot. What are you talking about? Okay, but you're up to matayim already. That's the problem. Okay, but the point, now nobody says, don't believe the rabbi when he says that you won't gain weight by making ma'aberachot. That's not true. Well, they tell you you won't gain weight by the food that you eat on Shabbat. I don't think that's true. I think the guy if you look at the guy that said that halacha, that's probably the biggest proof that that's not true. Anyway, the point is that for a regular guy to get 100 berachot, you don't need too much effort and too much thinking. Outside of fast days and Shabbat, that we're going to talk about in upcoming halachot. The $1 million question that is raised today is ladies. Are ladies obligated in me'ah berachot? So here you come into a real halachic debate. There was a great rabbi called the Shevet HaLevi, Shmuel Vazna, alav Shalom, is one of the greats of the Beki'im, poskim of our generation. And Rav Vazna came along and said, listen, when Shulchan Aruch and Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, gives the list of berachot to get to 100, he puts talet and tefillin on the list. And we know that our ladies, as modern as they are, they're not wearing talet, they're not wearing tefillin, nor do we recommend it. Therefore, he says, so you see, Shulchan Aruch was giving a man's list. And the reason why he was giving a man's is because it's a man's item. And therefore, there's no need for ladies to worry about me'ah berachot. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said the same thing. He said, listen, women are exempt from praying 3 amidot. From the halakha, a lady only has to pray 1 amidah. And therefore, since again, when Maran gave the list, 3 amidot, they don't pray 3 amidot. So therefore, you can't mandate that they're obligated. And it's actually brought down in the Teshuvot Be'anagot that something that's not automatic would not be obligatory for a lady. A man, it's going to be an automatic. It's easy just in his regular living halachically, he'll get to 100. But a lady living halachically, she's not going to get near to 100. So therefore, to tell her what, you got to eat extra carrots and extra, coffees, and then go to the bathroom for extra. How many times should you go to the bathroom? So therefore, the Teshuvot Hanagot also says that ladies are going to be the ladies are going to be exempt. So you have a lot of rabbis like that. So you have the Shevet HaLevi, ladies are exempt. You have Hakam Teshuvot Behanagot, and you have Hakam Shlomo Zalman Oyebach. They all say that they're exempt. And some want to argue even that it's a mitzvah that's bound by time. Mitzvah aseh shazman gerama, because you have to do it every day, and you have from the morning to the night, and every day is a new obligation. Although it sounds like it's not a zman gerama because it's every day, all day. So that's what some of the rabbis contend against that. But those are the opinions. If you're a lady, this is good news. That there's a nice consensus of poskim that will tell them it's not your item. You don't have to worry about it. Put away the counter. Just, make sure your husband makes the 100 berachot and you live through your husband. That's something, another item you could bother your husband about every day. Did he make his 100 berachot? But for themselves, they're going to be patu. But that's not the opinion of Chacham Ovadia alav hashalom. Chacham Ovadia alav hashalom in Halichot Olam disagreed, and he said that, listen, you're telling me that Maran counted Talit and Tefillin in another book that Shulchan Aruch wrote called Kesef Mishneh, where he lists 100 berachot, he doesn't include Talit and Tefillin. So you see, those were not critical berachot to get to the count. And he comes along and he says they're not exempt, and therefore they should try to get to the 100 berachot as best as they can. It's on them. It's a big chadus of Chacham Ovadia. He's putting a stringency, especially that Chacham Ovadia holds that ladies only have to pray once a day, and he holds they should not make the beracha of Baruch She'amar with Shem Malchut. They should not make the beracha of Yishtabach with Shem Malchut, and they cannot make the 7 blessings of Yosef. I mean, so you're really putting them at a great disadvantage, but nonetheless, he says, so how is a woman supposed to fulfill the mitzvah? The most practical solution for her is to recite the Amidah 3 times a day. She doesn't have to, but she can. The ladies are obligated to do it once. But again, if she's really want to get her berachot, she can voluntarily pray the other 2 as well. It'll bring her much closer to the goal. If she figures out another solution, she may fill it in another way. In any case, a woman must expend considerable effort if she wishes to fulfill this mitzvah. So it's probably one of the hardest mitzvot for a lady to fulfill. For a man, it's probably the easiest mitzvah to fulfill. Little thought has to be put into it, but the lady would really have to go out of her way, and especially God bless the ladies always dieting and things like that. So there you go. So they can have another challenge for them to try to make them berachot without eating extra more than they normally do. All right, listen, that's the Chacham Ovadia's opinion. Yalkut Yosef brings it down as well. And since the Beki'im Bahalacha accepted to follow the opinions of Chacham Ovadia, that's the way we're going to rule as well. And therefore the lady should make a great effort. For our purposes, again.
How does Chacham Ovadia get around the chiyuv of Zman?
It's really not as Zman Gerama in the sense that you have the mitzvah from all day, every day. So what's the Gerama? You have the 24 hours a day. Every day is a new mitzvah. That's not shofar, that's once a year on Rosh Hashanah. It's not Sukkot, that's 7 days. This is a mitzvah every single day, from morning to night. What's the time of the berachot? There's no limit to it. Every day, you can do it all day long. Kiryat Shema, you have until, the 3rd hour. Amidah, you have until the 4th hour. These are mitzvot that are, let's say, bound by time to a certain degree. When it comes to these mitzvot over there, Chacham David discusses it as well in his Halacha. In any event, gentlemen, make your berachot and stay tuned tomorrow with Hashem for more on this most important subject. Amen.